What's up, Swole Soldiers? Welcome to episode 13 of the Strength House podcast. Tonight we have special guest Adam Pine on the show, and we are going to talk about powerlifting meets, how to prepare for a powerlifting meet, pick your attempts, as well as everything deadlift from a 760-pound deadlifter himself. You don't want to miss this show. That's all I got.
The Strength House Podcast, featuring Greg Robbins and Tony Bonvecchio.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the Strength House Podcast. This is episode 13. We're coming off another bye week, feeling good, well rested. We have a very special guest with us tonight. And a couple announcements before I get there. Tonight is Irish Josh's last podcast with us. The famed producer is moving on, taking a trip around the country, and then he is going back to Ireland. They're kicking him out of the country, unfortunately.
It's only a matter of time.
Please, yeah, it was. I'm surprised it didn't happen sooner.
I'll be back.
He says he'll be back, but please give your well wishes on the comment section to Irish Josh. He's been reading all of your comments for about 16, 17 weeks now.
12 episodes.
12 episodes. A couple buys.
Few bye weeks.
Yeah. Got Tony B next to me, and we have our friend and special guest, Adam Pine, on the podcast tonight as well. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Doing good, man.
All right. So some other cool stuff happened this past week, right?
Yep. We had a full weekend, man. So as we talked about, a couple weeks back, we were getting really excited to see Metallica at Gillette Stadium, bringing the greatest band of all time into the home of the greatest football team of all time. So that was a blast. Had a bunch of our friends and coworkers going to that. That was amazing. And I hopped on a plane the next morning out to Columbus, Ohio, and went to see Metallica again on Sunday. Worked security at Rock on the Range. Got to go backstage and work security and see the guys up close and personal. So I'm running on an average of about 3 hours of sleep for the past week or so, and little post-Metallica depression, kind of feeling like, what do I got to look forward to next besides some good conversation and these awesome beers?
Yeah, it's not a bad thing to look forward to.
No.
All right, so let's crack our beer, and then we'll get into asking Adam a bunch of questions here. So we have two beers tonight from Mikerphone Brewing in Elk Grove Village, Illinois. These came to us compliments of Michelle from Illinois, who is a fan of the Strength House, views the podcast, and will actually be interning at Cressy Sports Performance in the fall. So congrats on that, and thank you very much, Michelle, if you're watching right now, for sending us these two awesome beers. This brewery has actually really great reviews, and the second of the two beers that we're going to drink tonight looks like it's got a lot of big ratings. This one's rated pretty high as well. And let's check it out.
Let's hit it with the 50 cal, the Strength House bottle opener.
We have a 50 cal, the Strength House bottle opener. Compliments of my brother-in-law. So all kinds of gifts coming through to the Strength House too.
Thing's badass.
All right, well, let's do it.
All right, Adam, while we crack into this, why don't you let our listeners know a little bit about yourself? What do you do? How'd you get into lifting? And how'd you meet these two bozos over here?
Sure. Yeah, I'm a strength coach. I work at Titan Barbell, and I do online coaching too. And I got into powerlifting after college. I was kind of lifting at the gym, and I was looking for something more. I was getting strong, kind of stronger than some of my friends, so I was looking for something to kind of take my training further. Got into powerlifting, and then I moved up to Boston and met Greg kind of at TPS. So you were leaving TPS at the time, and then you just started at Cressy, I think, and Pat Koch kind of introduced us, I think. Yeah.
I remember, I think, even meeting you at one of maybe the second or third meet I ever did.
Yeah.
Was
the
it
TPS RPS?
No, before that even
the
existed.
Attleboro. Yeah.
It was in a storage space.
Yeah, the Boston Barbell, I think.
Yeah.
It turned into something else. It was in a...
It was their place wasn't
warehouse,
big enough, so they rented out a wear out, like just for the day, I think.
Yeah.
It was kind of cool though. It was like they hung a giant American flag was the back.
Yeah, that was a good meet. I remember I wanted to compete in that. I competed like a couple weeks earlier.
Yeah, that was fun. That was a good meet. Cool. All right. Did you try the beer yet?
I did. Very interesting.
Smells fruity.
Fruity for sure.
Smells weird.
It's got like a peachiness to it.
It's different.
Yeah, I like it a lot though.
Yeah, it's a milkshake kind of flavor.
Right, yeah, almost like that sweetness to it, but it doesn't have that like kind of like milky mouth feel. It is like a little thinner on the body, almost fruit juice like.
It's different.
I want to look at this
Why
bottle.
Why is it that color?
Why is it that color? That's a good question. It's very, very dark, as you guys can see. Sometimes you'll see like a dark IPA or like a brown ale that kind of has this coloration to it.
Yeah.
But a lot like you know what this reminds me of is almost like the Cascade. Like there's that Cascade cherry ale that I've had before, which is like aged. The one I had recently was from 2014, so going on 3 years old.
Not what I expected.
No.
Larry Robbins, probably the first person ever to tune in from Fenway Park.
That is awesome. Thanks, Lars.
Yeah, well, so Adam, you have a ton of experience coaching powerlifters and lifting yourself, so we're going to gear a lot of the questions tonight towards that. So if you guys listening, if you have questions, if you're coming up on one of your first competitions, this is an awesome guy to pick his brain on what to do meet day, and we'll gear some questions that way too. But since Michelle sent us these beers, I'm going to give her first dibs. She sent in a question as well. You supply the beers, you get your question asked first. So Michelle wanted to ask you, Adam, when you attempt a new weight in a meet that you haven't tried before, are there any strategies that you use to make yourself believe it will happen?
Yeah, I think that getting your mind right going into the meet is a big part of it. So I use visualization. So I just basically imagine myself doing the lift thousands of times before I even do it, and then it's like I already done it by the time I step to the platform and actually lift the weight.
Mm-hmm.
So I just go through it in my head over and over. Make it as vivid as you can. So think about like the chalk flying around at the meet, like the smell, the taste you have in your mouth, whatever it is, everything, like the bar, the people in the crowd, the judges, everything. Try and get a good image of it, and then once you do it, you're going to be confident in knowing you can do it.
Nice. I think I saw something from Josh Bryan that I've got a couple lifters trying right now because they have meets coming up. And he said literally load the plates on the bar and just look at them and watch and try to envision that happening.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you've read a lot. You got a mentor who was into the mental side of things, but I guess the more real you can make your visualizations, the better.
Yeah, and we talk a lot about the mental side of things, on this podcast and being mentally tough and using that to be able to realize your physical potential. Yeah, my high school athletic director was Brian Kane, who is now a very highly sought after mental game coach, peak performance coach, and he's trained a lot of MMA fighters, and he would literally take them through into the arena the day before and make them practice their walkout from the locker room. Practice getting into the ring and trying to just get themselves in that mindset of doing it exactly like they're going to do on the night that they fight. And I think with all the intimidation factor of being at the meet and doing something you've never done before, what a powerful way to make it seem like you've been there before. A follow-up question to that I have is, do you always have your lifters try to attempt PRs at a meet? Is there ever any reason to hit the same weight you've hit in training at a meet?
Generally, if someone has a goal of hitting a weight, I like to not do it in the gym first and do it on the platform. If you're pretty much, if your goal is to hit 500 at the meet and you take 500 in the gym and you miss it, or maybe you get it and it's an absolute grinder, chances are you're not going to be able to either repeat it or you're not really giving yourself a whole lot of room to grow. You can be confident in knowing you're going to hit the numbers. I was talking to you before, I hit 760 in my last meet, and on the deadlift, and I didn't touch anything over 700 going into that, and I only hit 600 a couple times before training for that, but based on the speed of the reps, I knew that I was good for over 750, which was my previous PR. So pretty much, I'd say for the most part, have your goal and have that goal for the meet, not for the gym. I mean, that's what you're doing powerlifting for. So that'd be my recommendation for most people.
And I've heard of a lot of different strategies for trying to like feel the weight, whether it's using like reverse bands or using heavy walkouts for the squat or heavy unracks and holds for the bench. You ever use any strategies like that?
Yeah, that stuff I think can work for some people. I think once you've hit a PR, like a big PR in a meet, you believe in it more, you trust more, you have more faith in the process, right? That's what it takes, like just trusting the process, trusting the program, and that just builds a ton of confidence. And I think that, that stuff can be definitely useful, reverse bands, walkouts, stuff like that, but nothing kind of trumps that, just trust in your planning and everything like that.
Nice. Would you ever consider, like, say someone just getting into powerlifting, and I kind of have a follow-up question to this, but maybe they're not like the mentally most strong person. Do you think maybe in like a first meet it would ever make sense just for like a confidence builder to say like, okay, if we can hit at least the numbers that you hit in the gym in the meet, since that because for some people I feel like they're viewing the meet as it almost decreases performance, whereas some other people increases.
That would be a good example. That's why, like I said, like most people, that would be a good time to just go in. They're all PRs, right? Like this is your first meet. If it's your first meet, they're all PRs. Like going and pick realistic goals. Do something that you know you can do. Again, so for sometimes that might be a completely new PR, but not for everyone. I mean, sometimes it's just good to just get some confidence that way. Just kind of do what you know you can do, and just consider them all PRs because they're meet PRs.
There's something about going 9 for 9 that really like makes people happy.
Yeah.
Sometimes even if you leave a little bit in the tank, I've noticed with lifters, like going 9 for 9 means a lot to people.
Definitely. I think that's a big thing. Like, would you rather, people all the time, they kind of overshoot. And they're like, oh man, but I could have done, I went for 520, I could have done 500 though, and that would have been a PR. I was like, take what you can get, leave some in the tank, that's totally fine. Like, there's more than one meet. We talked about earlier, we were kind of talking about, some people think it's like the World Series. This meet's like the World Series. It's like, it's everything. And it's like, there's a lot of meets. This is supposed to be like a lifelong journey, not just this is not your last meet. You don't have to let everything go at the meet.
Right. Yeah, I think at coaching people, I mean, and I'm a bad example in my own lifting because we should probably talk tonight a little bit about like picking your attempts. I think that would be a good conversation. But the mindset, like when you go 9 for 9 and you leave, and that always leaves you the room mentally to like, whether it's true or not, be like, I think I even had more in me.
Yeah.
And like you kind of have a swagger and you have some confidence, and you're like, well, I went 9 for 9. I underestimated a little. I'm definitely stronger than that, which is like such a better mindset to leave you, because that's gonna linger possibly with you for the next 6-8 months, depending on how long you do between meets, as opposed to going 6 for 9 and coming back and being like, I know I had that, I should have been able to hit it, or and now you just have like a lot of negative thoughts going in your head. So
you regret the overshooting it a lot more than you do leaving some in the tank, for sure.
Yeah, and you leave a lot more up to interpretation afterwards, I feel like.
Exactly.
Overshooting it and missing than undershooting it, getting all your lifts. Like, I don't care if someone gets all their lifts. If I know that they're in it, they're going to compete again, I'd rather than walk around being like, I had another 20 pounds.
Absolutely.
Like, whether they did or not.
Yeah.
Like, that's still the mindset you want all your lifters to have. Like, I got another 20 pounds in me. Like, all the mental confidence in the world.
Yeah. You want to be happy, right? Not satisfied. Like, no one's really satisfied after meet, right? Even when you hit a PR, like, I had more in the tank, Everyone kind of feels that way. So it's very rare that you kind of left everything else, everything on the platform, and went 9 for 9. Happens, but it's pretty rare.
Yeah. It's too bad you only get 3 attempts. They should let you just take as many as
Go until you miss.
Yeah.
So 12-hour meets would go to 20-hour meets.
If you hit 3, you're allowed at 4.
Well, you can do that
Yeah,
sometimes
you set
for
a world
World
records.
record, yeah.
That's what you should tell your lifters. Oh, well, you can try again, but you're going to have to go all the way up to this.
And I will say too that like the meets where I've gone 9 for 9, I feel a lot less beat up like the next day or like the following days as opposed to if I missed a couple lifts. So I feel like you can almost return to training faster
Yeah.
if you leave some in the tank.
It's taxing, I think, missing lifts, you know, it's taxing, and it's also, like, it is mentally, too, because you're more down on yourself, whereas, like, you're kind of beaming after a good meet, you go 9 for 9, you're, like, all amped up, and, like, you're ready to get back into it. So not only is it physically taxing to miss, but, like, that good energy that momentum you've built from having a good meet carries over into your training. I think that's a big reason for that, too.
Well, our boy over here, Irish Josh, just did a meet this past weekend. Did very well, along with classic JoJo Beans of Strength Roots fame. And so Josh did something interesting. He missed his second bench press attempt, but then came back and got it on his third.
Yeah.
That, in my experience, is really rare.
Yeah.
Like I think it's very hard to come back and hit a lift in competition that you missed on your first or second attempt. You've probably had lifters do it. When that comes about, what do you say to your lifter? How do you approach it and help them regroup and hit that lift after they've missed it already?
I mean, I'll take it, you know, case by case. If it was a technical thing, may just review that real quick, and then just encourage them. Like, keep it positive. Like, you know, you can do it. Just get them to believe that they can do it. That's a big reason a lot of the time that they miss, right? Like you miss it and you're like, shit, I can't get that. And you know, then you get them to believe that no, like you just maybe need to change this up a little bit. Like, just go out there, be fast, like hit the lift.
Two ammonia caps instead of one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and probably a lot of times, in my experience at least, if they're gonna get it, it's because it was a technical breakdown. Like, if it wasn't a technical breakdown and they missed,
right. If the attempt's just too heavy, I mean,
it could just be too, that given day. Like in your case, technical breakdown for sure. That's tough too because like making technical adjustments in a meet.
Yeah.
How do you approach that with people?
So unless it's something kind of egregious that like, you know, hey, you need to just do this, whatever, straighten your back, I don't know, whatever. I'll go over it, but I try to very rarely coach technique on meet day. It's just like more attitude. Like go in there, like, and just give them hell. You know, that it's time to just, you know, just display the strength. So you're not going over technique, you know, you're not like breaking them down, and that's gonna kind of like wear on your confidence too, right? Like you need to work on this, and when you work on this, like, damn, like I'm at the meet, you know, it's like
You should at that point have, you know, ironed out a lot of the technique stuff, and we know from a coaching standpoint that like the more you cue, the slower stuff happens.
Big time, yeah.
You know, that thought process alone can impact how quickly, you know, you move through the lift, and you know, putting maximum force in as fast as you can. We know how important that is to be strong. So I agree with you 100%. Like the technical side of things should be, you know, very rarely spoken of. And
it's amplified on meet day too. I think people are even more, you know, sensitive to criticism. You can really get in a lifter's head, I think, if you're overly cueing or coaching.
I thought though Greg's tips helped me a lot anyway. Like some of my technique stuff just wasn't happening, and what you said actually helped. Like, it wasn't like that technical. It was pretty simple, but it was still like to do with technique.
Yeah, and I think, you know, like Adam, like you said, like if someone's struggling, that's when you might need to pull it out, because it's like sometimes people aren't struggling. You still see I've been at meets with lifters who aren't necessarily struggling. Like they're hitting their lifts, and in the back of my head, I'm like, I think that would be even easier if they, you know, remembered this technique.
Yeah.
But I still like try to hold it back because it's like, you know what, the aggression's there and the attitude's there.
Yeah.
And I don't want them to lose that.
However, I will say, and I think what Greg did for you, Josh, is very similar to what Greg did for me at my last meet. I remember my second squat attempt was like kind of hairy and harder than it should have been. And not so much like a technique thing, but you just told me to like hold the bar a little higher, move my hands in a little bit, so I would stay more upright. Sounds like you, Josh, went like the other way, move the bar a little bit lower, keep it closer to your hips. So that's not necessarily a technique thing, that's just like changing the placement of the bar. When in the meet, maybe the bar's a little different than what you trained with. Certainly at the RPS meets, most people aren't training with that big ass iron wolf bar.
Exactly.
So sometimes just getting a little more like passive tension by changing bar placement, changing grip width, whatever. Sometimes that can be just the thing you need to get through a tough lift on meet day.
Yeah. Or you just tell someone to do that and they just believe it's going to work.
That's true. Seriously. Like, hey, just move your hands out an inch.
That's all
you got it. Yeah, that definitely works. I do that.
Your grip's
whatever works.
Your grip is too wide. Just bring your grip in. That might be like somewhat true, and then also just like change the focus a lot. For somebody too. How do you deal with like different personalities going into a meet?
Yeah.
So, as an example, the two guys that just competed, Josh and then Joe.
Yeah.
Two different mentalities. So, Josh, I feel like is a little bit more cerebral, thinks about this stuff, and Joe is just like, slap me in the face as hard as you can, and then I'm gonna go lift this. How would you coach those two people differently on the meet?
Just on like case by case, the guy, give them what they need. So if he just needs to be like, hey, go out there, give him a slap on the back, then great. Some people don't, you don't want to talk to him at all. You kind of like leave them alone the entire time. And if that's the kind of lifter they are, I don't want to be at odds with that, right? So that's like a big thing. You don't want to be at odds with how the person, like their nature, right? So if someone's really quiet and they just need to focus on the lift and like be, by themselves, I let them do it. If they need to be, talked to and encouraged or talked off a ledge or something, then that's what I'm there for too. So it just depends on the person and kind of what they're like, what their nature is.
I will say, Adam, that like you definitively taught me how to coach lifters at meets. Like I learned a lot from you about that by watching you coach a certain lifter who may or may not have the same last name as you. And I had a really hard time with that for a while. And something that you said that's always stuck with me is that the lifter will model their coach's attitude and their energy. So if you have a lifter who's really like anxious, and you as the coach show that you're anxious or nervous, then that's just gonna amplify what they're feeling. Or if they're feeling down and then you get in their face and you're like, what are you doing? Like figure it out type deal. Again, that's just gonna feed into what they're feeling.
Exactly.
So I feel like more often than not, lifters need to be like calmed down and like bring it down a little bit. So I found myself in recent years just being much more calm at meets.
Yeah.
Saying a little bit less.
Yeah.
Not trying to get the lifter jacked up. So that just idea of like the lifter will model your attitude, that's stuck with me forever.
I think saying less is a big thing. People try and do too much. Solve every problem, solve everything, and it's like we don't need to handle everyone with kid gloves. Like we're here, it's just lifting. Like just go, just lift. Like you don't have to make a big thing out of it. I think that's a big thing. No need to really overcoach at a meet. It's just you get 9 attempts. That's it.
Yeah. There are people who do it without coaches.
Yeah. I think people just overthink it too much. It's there for you. You can help pick attempts and some stuff, and try and just stay even keel and like you said, like kind of if they're all the way up here, get them down here a little bit.
So speaking of like attempts, what's your general philosophy on picking attempts in the meet?
Yeah. So generally, I basically say I have a target, right? So 500 is the target. Generally start off around 90% of that. So and that also I should say like it's important that your target's accurate to begin with, and not like way too lofty. So start with your target 500. Take 90% of that usually as the opener. Jump up to 95% of that as your second attempt, and your third attempt go with 100% of your target. And there's little variations to that. Obviously, like, that day you're feeling weak or whatever, go a little lighter.
We have a dog issues here. There we go.
Say hi, Bear.
Bear, come here. All right. So we got
Big man,
just to
little
recap
dog.
since we had Bear barking all over the place. This is your second appearance on the podcast.
Oh yeah.
She doesn't like visitors. All right, so we have 90% for the first attempt.
Yeah.
What'd you say for a second?
95% of your 95%
Of what you want.
of what you want. Yeah.
Okay.
So 90, 95, 100%. And you can go obviously like a little lighter, a little heavier. You go over 100% if you're like, that's a common mistake we were talking about. But like if you actually know it's there, then go for it.
Yeah.
But,
Okay.
And you've been putting out some kick-ass infographics on Instagram, and one of them that I really liked was about picking attempts.
Yeah.
And I know when I first got it started in powerlifting, the general approach was like, you do your first attempt based on percentage, whether it's 90%, 95%, whatever. Second attempt is a small PR, and then go for broke on your third.
Mm-hmm.
But according to your Instagram, you disagree with that.
Going for broke. Yeah.
So why is it that you wouldn't take that approach?
Because the go for broke it never goes. It's like you always like, I should have gone 10 pounds later, like we were talking about. I would have hit that. So like go in with a realistic target. Like that's the most important part. Like your target has to be realistic to begin with. If it's not, then that system doesn't really work so well. Like if you can only squat 500. You can only squat at 500 in the gym, and your goal is 700. Like probably not going to happen, and that 90% is not really going to be any use.
Cool. All right. How much you got left on there?
Less than you, brother.
All right. We're gonna take this down. We're at the halfway point here.
Never been early.
Well, just because I want to switch the topic away from meats a little bit, but it seems like we should start the second beer and make that coordinated.
Yeah. Do we want to do the beer fact before or after we open the second beer? During.
Yeah.
Well,
Beer fact.
Beer fact. I'm trapped in the corner, so someone else. I don't know. Can you walk?
Where is it?
It's in the fridge right there.
The best part about doing the podcast in Studio B here in the kitchen is greater access to the fridge.
True.
Well,
We just have to deal with beer more. It says Mikerphone on it.
Yeah, this I want my IPA.
Mikerphone. Interesting.
Josh is so rude.
Josh is already probably drunk because he hasn't had any beers in 3 weeks.
I know for my first powerlifting meet, I cut out all alcohol for like 8 weeks. And keep in mind, I was living on a college campus the year after I graduated, still with all my friends. More recent experience has shown me that hasn't helped my performance at all. Microphone check.
I plan to cut it out 2 weeks. I don't know how that's going to work on the podcast.
Yeah. You're probably going to want to.
We're going to sample Bush NA. Oh, God. I have a great story.
2 beers.
I feel like I got to tell this story now.
All right, guys. Beer number 2. Microphone check 1, 2. A double dry hopped double IPA with Citra hops. I really like the can art on this.
Yeah.
Bottle art, rather.
I like the blue.
I like the same.
Yeah, it's a really nice color.
Same brewery. Yeah. Another
This is
one
from Michelle?
compliments of Michelle.
Is it Michelle Kania?
Yeah.
She said dog doesn't agree. Question mark.
The dog doesn't like new people. We had someone come in, so she liked Adam. She liked you actually.
Yeah,
Not a lot of barking at all.
dogs.
But you've
dogs
met her
like
before.
Me.
You've met her before
That's
too.
kind of good.
She remembers people big time.
All right, so as we pour this beer, there's a very noticeable turbidity to it, a haze, if you will.
Turbidity.
Yeah, that's a word. Write it down.
All right.
I think our beer fact is related to that, correct?
Yeah. So our beer fact is gonna touch upon the fact that the first one we had was a much clearer IPA, and this one is a lot more hazy. So. Basically, this is what they're calling these days a New England style IPA. We've talked about it on the show before. I mean, this is a real murky one too.
Yep.
This is like dark and hazy.
Brandy.
Yeah. Grainy is actually a good call. So I'm going to read you guys a little thing here from homebrewersassociation.org. What is a New England style IPA? Is it a style? Well, the American-style India Pale Ale is allowed to chill haze at cold temperature and hop haze at any temperature. The hop aroma is high, exhibiting floral and fruity characters, while hop bitterness is medium. It seems as though the New England IPA is an unbridled, hop-forward IPA and is made from the proudest of hop enthusiasts who sacrifice nothing to the filter. So part of it is that it's very unfiltered.
Yep.
But you can still have a clear IPA that's unfiltered.
You can, and like for example, Heady Topper and Focal Banger from The Alchemist, some of the old school New England IPAs, they don't have this haziness, but you can very much see like the hop sediment and the resin floating around in the beer, hence the unfiltered quality.
So while the debate still looms over whether the so-called New England IPA is a fad or is a style with staying power, beer enthusiasts' admiration for hop flavors makes these beers no-brainers, and the excitement surrounding them is evident. When asked why demand for these IPAs is soaring, Sparhawk explained the hazy IPA is part of an overall trend toward bold, bursting hop flavor. Craft beer lovers are accustomed to flavor, particularly hop flavor, which is not the same as bitterness. So in the end, the question of whether New England IPA warrants its own style category depends on the continued influence of these juicy examples. The popularity is growing and inspiring many imitators, but is it a flash-in-the-pan riff or on the American IPA? Or is it just a West Coast IPA with new hop varieties and a change of appearance? So what they're also saying here is that the reasons that it is more hazy have to do with a couple different things. First, it can be the type of yeast that they use. Yep. So instead of using a traditional American yeast, there's different English yeast strands or combinations of strands that cause it to be hazy. So basically this yeast doesn't settle and disappear. It stays, what's the word I'm looking for, suspended in the liquid. There's a chemistry class pull out right there. Also just the massive amounts of dry hopping that can happen to it, which we talked about in a former episode, also keeps actually particles of the hops floating around in the beer. And lastly, some breweries will actually add flour to the beer to give it the haziness just to kind of meet the appeal, which is, a little, what's the word I'm looking for?
It's frowned upon. It's
yeah.
not traditional.
Faux pas.
Yeah, definitely a faux pas. But yeah, the double dry hopping look is a dead giveaway. It almost has like that flat, like matte finish to it. You can tell right away when something's been aggressively dry hopped.
Yeah, so I think it's a style that's going to stay around.
Oh,
we obviously love it.
Man,
it's made a big difference in my beer.
If it goes anywhere, I'm going with it. Wherever it goes.
Okay. Well, for now it's being called a New England style IPA. Let's give it a taste. You already tasted it?
I tasted it. See what you think before I say something.
Oh, yeah. Very good.
That's really good. I love this, man.
Very good.
The other one was
you can have a taste.
the I Want My IPA was definitely unique in color and in flavor, but this one is like right up our alley.
Yeah, this is delicious. Michelle, thank you very much.
The Citra, very evident in a lot of the beers that we enjoy on a regular basis.
They do have a similar taste though, in some way.
There's something unique about the brewery.
Well, the I Want My IPA has Mosaic and Citra, so
this is Citra.
Yep. One of these days, maybe Beer Fact will break down specific hops and their flavor characteristics, but
it's totally up to us.
Move
It
the
is.
bottles.
This is our
I
podcast.
can't see Adam's beautiful face. Nancy Newell says that.
Nancy Newell tuning in from North Carolina.
Where?
Come on and raise up.
That's that. Do you just block down his face again?
Josh can't see these comments. Oh, can you? Are you reading all the comments?
Yeah, I can see
Good.
it.
Do we got any good questions that we want to cover before we transition into?
Josh, you had
second
a
half?
good question.
I did
Earlier
actually.
I
I
see
was
stuff
gonna
coming
ask
through.
Adam.
Is it just all jibber jabber?
It's silly. Trying to get Greg to come to Ohio for the Conor Graham's powerlifting meet.
Ohio's a good time. I just spent 3 days there.
I could just spend 2 weeks there if 2 people competing there. There's one. I got one more meet question with you. How do you coach your distance-based clients on meet?
Same way as in person.
So, like, are they texting you? Are they?
Oh, like at the meet? Yeah.
on meet day.
On meet day,
How do
yeah.
you approach that?
Usually we're I try not to get. I don't like do every attempt with them because for all over coaching, it's kind of like we do that beforehand, all planned out.
Yeah.
You know, they can make variations on that if they need to, but just kind of keeping me updated, how the day is going, and just text back and forth usually.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah. I've been to meets before where the coach has been FaceTimed in, is literally faced towards the squat rack and like screaming at the lifter like as they're performing it. I don't think I would ever do that.
No, that's.
But yeah, that was taking it to an
They
extreme,
like roll you in. It's like a robot. That would be awesome.
No, apparently that coach had a bad relationship with the meet director, so they refused to be there in person. But they thought they could be just as effective via FaceTime.
I would love to go to all of the meets, but it's like, I mean, it's tough.
That's part of what we do is online coaching. You get to read so many more people. So vicious.
Not happy. Bear is not happy. All right, you had a good question. What was it?
Yeah, so this is a podcast this morning with a guy called Matt Gary. I don't know if you know him, he's a powerlifter. He's like a big advocate of training like the deadlift with just singles. So
Yeah.
he only performs singles. So
Yeah.
what your like opinion is over like singles or multiple reps?
I mean, I do probably the whole range. I keep it fairly low for most of my training. Most of my training is, if I'm prepping for a meet, I'll do usually like a singles to triples, heavy, and then mostly speed work. Those are that's my biggest thing. Is I'm doing mostly speed work. That makes up a bulk of my deadlift training, and I do like higher rep stuff though for a lot of the variations, like stiff-legged deadlifts, things like that. I'll do higher reps, but I don't think there's one particular rep range that's.
So you're not like a big fan of just training the singles for like the competition deadlift?
Not necessarily. I mean, there is a difference, obviously. Like once you hit that second rep, you get the stretch reflex.
Yeah.
So it is different, but I don't see why that's beneficial too. You know, you're able to do more reps and get stronger. So, I think, singles are great. And you know that for people like that's not just singles isn't like heavy like maxes. It's just single repetitions, and you can use them and like clusters are great too. For deadlifts, especially for that reason, if you want to keep it more like a competition style deadlift.
Cool. So, follow-up question to that. What do you think of like resetting between every rep of a deadlift? Like, say you have a set of 5 and you kind of turn it into 5 singles with quick rest in between. What are your thoughts on doing that?
I used to do that a lot. I stopped for a couple reasons. One, like, for some reason, I beat my hands up real bad doing it like that. I feel like or maybe not anymore, but like re-ripping it was a problem. So once I had it, I just wanted to hold on to it. And I think it's good for lifters who are really wanting to ingrain their technique, right? So really find their starting position. It's like, one of the most important parts of the deadlift is just finding what's your best starting position. It could definitely be helpful for that. But so can holding onto the bar and going down too can be useful for finding that position too. So I say do both, and I feel like now with my own training, like I'm dialed into my deadlift, so I don't really feel that's the other reason I don't really feel the need to kind of reset it each time and practice my setup again. So I think both styles can be useful.
I've had some lifters do it, and I almost always try to phase them out of it.
Yeah.
But I found that the people who it works the best for are sumo deadlifters. I feel like getting back to the floor in a good position for sumo can be kind of problematic sometimes because there's such a like side-to-side motion that has to happen with your knees.
Yeah.
I've almost always told like conventional deadlifters like don't do that.
Yeah.
But sumo sometimes give them a pass.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you can cut the range of motion down too, right? Like if you have the tension on the bar the whole time, then the weights can kind of touch the ground and the bar still got the bend in it.
Yeah, especially like a really whippy, like a Texas deadlift bar.
Yeah, exactly.
So speaking of the whip in the bar, one thing we were talking about a little bit before we started on air was just the different styles where you see some guys really tension up, take all the slack out of the bar.
Yeah.
And you're a guy who kind of just tries to like meet the slack in the bar and just kind of rip into it while it's still straight, and then it catches up with you.
Yeah.
You know, a couple inches into the deadlift. When is that appropriate? Why do you like that better?
Yeah.
How do you teach it, basically?
I've done both. So once I got to 700, or trying to get above 700, I had a lot of trouble getting it past my knees. A lot of the time my lats weren't strong enough to keep the bar tight to my body, and with that shoulders back position. So I think, and also I wasn't going quite fast enough. So by just not preloading the bar, not pulling the slack out, I'm able to get my hips into a good position. Like basically, I'm jumping with the weight with no load in my hands. That's the first like inch or so. I'm unloaded, right? There's nothing like no tension in my arms or anything like that, and I can just jump. When you pull the slack out, everything is super tight. You're super rigid, and you're starting in a very loaded position. So like I feel like why not start unloaded and really jump with the weight and blow past that sticking point. And your arms are already long, your shoulders are down instead of back. This position's a lot stronger, a lot easier to maintain. And I just noticed also like a lot of like look at anyone who pulls over 800 pounds. I can only think of maybe one guy who does that really flat back and shoulders back, like a pull the slack out technique for conventional.
Yeah. But you're definitely the best deadlifter I know in real life. Some of the guys who you're speaking of, a guy who I think of is Eric Lillibridge, who like his setup, he kind of pulls the slack out like as he's setting up. He kind of does like he goes down 1 pump, 2 pump, 3 pump, and then but when he lets it rip, he doesn't pull the slack out. He just goes as explosive as possible. Do you think there's like a transition period from like, okay, you've pulled this much weight, now it's really a matter of like you have to be fast off the floor? Like where's that transition period where taking the slack out of the bar is no longer productive?
Sure. I think that the main thing is safety, right? So it's a little more risky to pull without preloading it. You have to really be able to breathe and brace properly. So you have to have that pretty mastered, I think, before you do the unloaded technique, or the rounded back technique. You have to really be more really good at bracing, because otherwise, if your back starts around more than you already start, then you're kind of screwed. So I'd say that's the main thing, and then basically, if you get to a point where you cannot maintain, no matter what you do, you can't really maintain a straight back position, then you gotta look for alternative methods. And I think that it's not right for everyone. Like if you're not a powerlifter, there's really no point in doing it, I don't think. And if you're, you just have to weigh the risk and reward yourself. So that's another thing. It's just up to kind of the person and saying, I don't really want to. The extra risk isn't worth it for me.
Yeah, probably puts like your bicep at a little bit more risk, hamstring at a little bit more risk.
Yeah, I think your back is it's probably the riskiest part for it, just your lower back, but and risk reward.
Nancy says, Adam, your deadlifts are so freaking fast. What tools would you use to help someone increase bar speed off the floor?
Speed deadlifts, I think, are probably just the biggest thing. In my programs, Josh writes both our programs, Josh Bryan, and he has
Nancy's too, actually.
Oh, cool. And I saw him post that video of it. That was badass. And I'd say yes. I do a lot of speed work, and that I've always done that. I've always just done a lot of sub-maximal pulling. I think that's been the biggest thing. I kind of just really, again, getting good at that technique. And then the other thing is that, like I said, the technique. So like finding the most powerful position, really where you sit your hips down, you feel like you can jump with the weight. That's the biggest thing. I think people get into the position where they feel like they're the tightest or something else. That's not going to be the best for speed.
Yeah. And like to backtrack, and we've had talks about this before. Is I don't like the camp that's like every deadlift you pull should be a single with a reset, because I think a lot of people are like, well, I don't know what the right position is, and it's pretty like you could say, oh, put your feet like where you would jump and then do this, but I haven't seen anything work as well as do a deadlift, lock it out, and then control it back down to the ground in tension. And don't let any slack come out of the bar. Just let the plates subtly touch the ground where you are right there. Like, just try to memorize how that feels, and that's what you should mimic as your position. Like, it's almost impossible to get there on your first rep without lowering it down, but like the more you can sit back like that, the more you can have that tension already loaded up. And so I've had a lot of success for myself and with others, just not touch and go in the sense of like banging it off the ground, but touch and go where like the slack never comes out of the bar and there's a light touch. And so your first rep's really fast, and then the next two maybe aren't quite as fast because you're not letting the slack out, so you don't get that rip.
Yeah.
But what it teaches you from like a tension standpoint is huge.
Yeah, that's how I do all my reps. It's kind of that, well, most of them I should say, is that light touch. Stay tight the whole time and just bang out those reps.
Yeah. I think it keeps like all the right muscle groups under tension the whole time too.
Yeah.
Lats, hamstrings, upper back. Granted, like we know that isometrics aren't going to build like a shit ton of size, but it's definitely going to strengthen the right areas.
Sure. Yeah, I think there's definitely benefits to doing it. And I think, like you said, it also helps you find the position. I think people, as long as they keep their hips too high a lot of the time, when the question of speed, right? Like, I think people keep their hips too high a lot of the time. I think if you go that, like an inch lower than you think you need to sometimes, you can, again, like I was talking about, kind of jump with the weight unloaded. That'll help you do that. Just like an inch maybe lower than you think you need to go sometimes.
A lot of times higher hips makes it easier to break it off the floor, right? You might break it off the floor quickly, but then that transition over the knee, like you were talking about, was giving you trouble. Yeah. That's where a lot of people will then have trouble at that transition point.
Yeah, big time.
Where do you stand these days on like shin angle when you set up?
Yeah. So I've changed my tune on it because I remember we kind of disagreed on this a while back. I kind of taken your stance more on it now, and whichever, both are fine, definitely. I get more out of letting them track forward a bit, getting my quads more involved, and again, I just think about jumping when I pull. That's it. I'm not thinking about pulling. I'm just thinking about like doing a vertical jump more or less, and so I'm not jumping with my shins vertical when I'm trying to like dunk a basketball. I'm not going to do that when I deadlift.
Can you dunk a basketball?
Hell no.
Well,
Fisher Price basketball. Throw down though.
Back to Nancy's question real quick. Like speed deadlifts, obviously a big part in your programming.
Yeah.
Do you ever do, or have you ever done any sort of jumping or other like lighter load power development stuff?
Usually as like in my warm up almost, but not a whole lot of plyos in general. Yeah, just as a warm up method. Yeah, I don't know. Do you guys use that in your training?
From time to time. I haven't recently.
I used to be a big advocate on it, and I stopped doing it. And I haven't noticed any difference.
Yeah.
Well, I know training up to my 600-pound deadlift, you had me doing a lot of jumping. A lot of seated box jumps.
Yeah. I think I transitioned there. I think in that case, it was just a timing. So, like, one thing I do like, which I used to do, stopped doing it, and then working with Josh got me back into it, was, like, really light box squats or front squats or something before I deadlift. I feel way better if I do something before I deadlift because for me, I don't really like doing a lot of warm-up sets to deadlift.
Yeah.
Like, I can start at 315 and feel fine, and I can do like a couple reps at there, and then go right to like I'm making plate jumps. So like, if I'm working up to let's say 600, I could be there in like 5 minutes, in like 4 sets if I wanted to. It wouldn't make a difference to me because I don't feel like I'm getting much out of lighter deadlifts. aside from like the intent, but like I don't know, like that's the way I've always approached the deadlift is, for better or for worse, just like rip the thing off the ground.
Yeah.
Pretty hard. So like the intent's never
Yeah.
really an issue for me. I've swayed towards the side of too much ripping it off the ground, not enough paying attention to like getting into position and then ripping it off the ground. So to do some kind of like some slight doubles of a box squat or a front squat is big. So I usually transition people where I think we did that, and then the next phase we just went to jumps, just because you had already finished doing. So I think squats or jumps, something that just makes you warm up.
Yeah, I
Is
agree.
fine.
From a specificity standpoint, at a powerlifting meet, you're never going to deadlift first, unless
Right,
you deadlift
true.
only.
Right.
So you're going to deadlift under some sort of fatigue. You'll have squatted already.
Yeah.
You know? So I do like that idea of doing something else before you deadlift.
Yeah, and I just feel like if I already have a sweat going, and I'm my hips are warmed up at that point. Even my back is warmed up at that point.
Yeah, front squats hammer home a lot of good things in terms of the deadlift.
Yeah,
So I think that makes them a perfect thing to do before you deadlift.
and when you are a person that deadlifts with a little more shin angle, and you're thinking about jumping, like you said, Adam, like if you squat right before, like it kind of gets your mind in that idea of like driving with your quads right off the floor, exploding out.
Yeah, I think your intention with speed is like just as important as anything, right? Like it's not always going to move fast, but you have to intend to move it as fast as possible. I think that helps with that.
Would you say sometimes you kind of live and die by ripping it off the floor, though?
Yeah. Like it's I just want to blow past my sticking point.
Yeah.
And it goes back to like I think being able to create tension and stay tight too. If you're not very good at that, then your form's gonna break down a lot quicker when you rip it off the floor. Mm-hmm. So I did it for years the other way, like really pulling the tension out of the bar and going, and I did that for years before I switched to the other way of doing it. I think that helped me learn how to develop that tension, which I now use in the way I pull differently, but I use that tension to stay tight, maintain my posture during the lift.
Yeah. I know one thing that happens for myself is sometimes I'll rip it off the floor, and if I don't maintain that tension, I have a hard time locking the bar out. There's been countless times, like the first time I ever tried to pull 600 was at that meet at Boston Barbell. Ripped it off the ground, thing flew up to about 2 inches before lockout, and then just completely stuck, which never happens to me until like a maximal attempt where I try to rip it off the floor and lose my tension somewhere, and then it's like I just can't recover.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on there? Why does that happen?
Could be. I think the biggest thing is just always getting into the right rhythm, like getting into the same starting position every time. It just takes hours of deadlifting over and over and over. You learn how to get into the right position, start in the right position, and be explosive. And it's that simple, but it's really, again, I talked about earlier, I think before we started the podcast, like I don't think if I didn't deadlift for a year, I'd be fine. Like preparing for a meet, I feel like I know my technique, and it's going to be the same no matter what. So that's the main thing. I think people kind of get out of the rhythm and try and over pull it, and their technique's a little different than it normally is on meet day sometimes because they try and do too much. Just like stick to what works and do that. I think that's a big part of it. It's just over pulling it.
We talked a lot about the deadlift specifically and technique and all that. If you had to pick 2 assistance exercises, one upper body, one lower body to build the deadlift, what would they be?
Lower body, like deadlift assistance, like speed deadlifts would be my primary for building the deadlift. I think regardless of your sticking point, it'll help you get faster off the floor or end to lockout. So speed deadlifts.
What about something that's not a deadlift for lower body?
Okay.
Or not a deadlift from the floor?
Squatting, any kind of squat, like squatting, front squatting, building your legs, like the deadlift is such a leg heavy movement. Like again, that jump. So build your leg strength up. That's gonna help a ton. And like specifically, I've done. I like front squats. I like the safety bar a lot for building the deadlift. And you can do just regular safety squats. You could do like dead squats with it or Anderson squats, like those. Upper body, any kind of rowing. Lately, I've been doing more. I've like chest supporter rows, dumbbells, things like that, because I want to give my lower back a bit of a break. So like doing really heavy barbell rows. I love T-bar rows, but they hit my lower. They tax my lower back too, and I kind of want to save that for pulling more. So I like chest supporter rows a lot.
They're a good one, man.
Yeah.
What's your take on sumo helping conventional helping sumo? Particularly, we have a question from Migsy Bogues about, will building your conventional help sumo?
Yeah, I think they both will help each other. Doing, if you're, especially like in the off season, I'll do sumo pulls or trap bar or something else. But we'll say sumo and I pull conventional, and it also just gives me a bit of a break. All right, so just doing the same movement over and over, it just gets taxing on the same muscle group the same way over and over. So it's nice to kind of just get some relief from that, and it builds up different areas a little more. The muscles are the same that are being worked, but the emphasis is a little different. So it's gonna help. They're gonna help each other. And some lifters, train a lot of some sumo pullers will train a lot of conventional only, and kind of just get ready right before the meet, 6, 8, 12 weeks out before the meet, they'll start pulling their sumo.
And that from like an orthopedic standpoint, depending on where you're age-wise, if you're getting up there, I know you got bad hips, Bear. That could be a good strategy for people that maybe pull like a super wide sumo who have some hips that are barking at them at this point.
Yeah.
That you can build up your conventional, give your hips a break, and then start pulling sumo 8 weeks before the meet.
Exactly.
Maybe even less if they're like really barking at you, but you know you're stronger sumo.
Yeah.
You can just walk in there and do that.
Yeah.
Is there something specific that you see with a lifter that makes you push them towards conventional or sumo?
Yeah. I don't go by I just have them do it. So you gotta do both of them at some point to know which one you're better at. Like people size people up all the time. Like you're built this way, you gotta pull like this.
Every meet I've ever done,
Yeah.
I've had somebody tell me dude, you should pull sumo.
Yeah,
your legs hurt.
It feels like trash. It feels like trash though, right? It's
Yeah.
like there's, so you just have to try it out and see what works best for you. And I'd say the other thing is too is give it a go, give it a real shot at one, and then experiment with the other. Don't just kind of flip flop all the time because probably not get good at either of them. But give them both a try at some point to really determine which one you're best at. And one should feel more natural to you, and that's kind of the one you want to play to your. What feels most natural to you. Like you said earlier, the more you have to think, the more you slow down. So if you're having to get into this weird position every time, it's going to be harder for you. It's going to slow you down.
I know, I've tried sumo, for 8 weeks at a time, and it always ends up feeling terrible. No matter what, I can't keep myself upright.
Yeah.
I feel like I just round over like crazy. I know you've
When did you do that?
before we ever met. Long time ago. But I know you've tried sumo as well, and you can pull pretty heavy sumo, but it doesn't feel so good for you,
Yeah.
right?
Well, yeah, I feel like almost anyone, from an orthopedic standpoint, could pull conventional. You can get, it doesn't involve as much mobility, I feel like, unless you're significantly lacking in some areas, or you're just super tall. But there's a serious hip concern on something like a sumo. If you don't have the required motion to get out into that wide position, then you could be picking up motion. In my case, I think I pick up motion from like at my knee, from my knee down. I get more rotation there, where I should be getting it, from my thigh, my femur. But again, like even the last time I tried, it felt better. So I think it comes down to practice a little bit.
Yeah,
But
sumo's like really like takes a lot of time to really like learn how to do it right and get the technique down. It's definitely way different.
Do you?
Sorry.
Do you-
Well,
You go first.
I was saying, also for someone like who pretty much their whole life has been conventional with the idea of ripping it kind of off the floor.
Yeah.
That's real. I've never been able to emulate that sumo.
Yeah.
So I think I lose entirely. I still
Steal my comment.
Yeah.
I think I lose a lot of pounds just from the fact that the only way I can pull sumo is to like take the slack out of the bar, tension myself into that position, and then just start leg pressing it off the ground.
I'm the same way. I have to like really pull the tension out to get. I have to force my body into that position, and to be. Otherwise, I'm just super bent over, and it's basically just a conventional sumo pull. So
Yeah.
I have to pull the tension. I definitely is just like that's a big part of it too. If you're used to ripping it off the ground, like that's a big difference. And also, it's just more technical. Like thinking about locking your knees out, then locking your hips out. Like that's not really natural to you so much if you're a conventional puller. It kind of happens on its own. We have to force that, I think, a little bit more on the sumo deadlift.
Definitely seems more tension dependent. A guy like a Dan Green, I feel like, is more of an outlier. Somebody who's like really explosive, like grip and rip, and like the bar doesn't leave the floor for like a good like 3 count. And, like, but then eventually it comes out, and then like it's a very short lockout.
I think like I would have. It's if you can get into the right position and rip it off the ground, I think that's best case. It's just like I can't get into that position at all unless I pull myself into that position.
I need the bar
Yeah.
to like leverage against to get into position. I can't just lower myself down into that position.
Exactly.
Bottom line, sumo sucks. You heard it here, Miguel. I know you're out there.
It's called pull sumo, eat butt for a reason. Nobody wants to eat butt.
We got 4 conventional pullers at the table, so majority wins. I don't know what bear pulls.
Bear's more into Olympic lifting.
Sounds about right.
And barking. All right, man. Well, so we've reached the end of tonight. But Adam, where can people find out more about you and more about also Titan Barbell?
So you can find more about me at adampine.com. That's my website, and titanbarbell.net. It's in Medford if you're in the area, in the Boston area. We're strongman, powerlifting, and just general strength training gym. It's owned by Eric Dawson, who you guys know. He's like coolest, nice guy. Yeah, he's awesome.
We'll get
Unbelievable strong man.
Yeah.
We'll come to you, Eric. I know you have multiple daughters at home and running a business, so we got to get down there. But awesome, and your Instagram's awesome too, Adam. So guys, make sure you check out. Was it Adam_Pine?
Yeah.
Adam_Pine on Instagram. Lots of great video demonstrations. Lots of great infographics. I almost lost that word there for a second. But yeah, you kill it on Instagram. Really great information. So make sure you check out Adam's stuff. It'll obviously be listed at the bottom of this page once we post it on the blog and on iTunes and everything. And thank you so much for coming on, man, and coming and being our first in-person guest.
That's big, man.
Thanks for having us,
big.
Not having to set up the TV is huge on our part. So,
hey guys, if you like what we're doing, make sure you give us a rating and a review on iTunes. If you want your questions answered, send us beer.
Send us beer is always awesome, especially beer as good as this.
Yeah, seriously.
So thank you very much, Michelle. These were two really great beers.
Didn't go make the top 10.
They could check into the blog page, and we'll see. We'll see if they make the top 10. This one could squeeze in there for me.
This one definitely is.
The first one was interesting, but
it
I would drink it again.
No,
absolutely.
So would I. Usually when we say interesting on the show, it doesn't.
Interesting usually is a nice way of being like.
This beer sucks.
I'm interested in never drinking this.
Great beers, great information. Thank you again, Adam, for taking the time and hanging out with us.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you guys for watching, and we will see you next week.
See ya.
Cheers.